This is a fun day. Today is going to be a fun conversation. I'm talking with the first person who hired me for my book writing mentorship, and now her book is well underway, and she has some things that she and I would like you to know. So, today we're talking with Cara Pacific Campbell. You're listening to Courageous Wordsmith. I'm Amy Hallberg, author, editor, and creative mentor. And these are conversations with real-life creatives on how we find and embody our voices. Because if you want to be a real-life creative, it helps to know what that looks like for you. Welcome to Courageous Wordsmith. Hi, Cara.
Hello.
I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you. I don't think you knew that you were my very first client.
I did
you?
not. No, I thought you were a full professional, that you had done this multiple times before. You sounded like so confident. I was just like, yes, okay, this is apparently what we're doing.
Well, I'm starting to realize that nobody starts from ground zero. So by the time I decided that I wanted to be doing this, I'd written my own book, I was doing this stuff, and I'd been a teacher for a really long time. So I taught language, and writing a book is a lot like teaching a language. Like you start out with, you walk in and you're like, hey, I want to learn how to do this, but I have this very, very sketchy idea of what I think I'm doing. And then there's what actually happens.
And it's like learning a foreign language, actually.
Yes.
Despite the fact that we communicate in English all day long and we're writing and we're speaking, what you put in a book it's structured differently, and you have to think differently, and putting the conversations in. When we first started, I had a lot of personal reflection, a lot of essay. It never occurred to me to make it a story. So I had to learn how to do all of that. It was learning the language of English all over again.
Isn't that crazy? And then we beat ourselves up. I mean, maybe you don't, but I want to zip right ahead. I want to write it and be done. And we want to beat ourselves up, and it's such a contemplative process.
It is. There's so much to process. I have to write it and then walk away and do something else completely different. And then I come back to it and I go, oh my God, who wrote that? That was terrible. Or sometimes I go, oh, that's a brilliant. Everyone should read this sentence. Just this one sentence, though. And then I'm able to tweak it, though. I have different eyes for it. All of a sudden, I realize what the story is underneath that story, and I can get to the next layer. But it's really much more of a process than I had ever anticipated. So much revisiting, rewriting, looking at different aspects within myself.
That sounds daunting.
Yes, it is daunting. And I can't imagine not having done it and not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's I saw this thing the other day about, it's not accomplishing the goal, it's who you become after you've accomplished it, right? It's who you become because you've accomplished it. And I feel like I have a better understanding of myself, my interactions with others, the world. I can't imagine not having done this. And I'm still, we were talking the other day, I've got around 49,000 bad words written.
They are not all bad, Cara. They are not. Stop it.
And I'm in the process of revising them and rewriting them for the umpteenth time before I start rewriting and revising in earnest. And I'm still learning so much about both the process and the language and myself. It's a gift, really.
And I think I shared with you when we talked the other day, my friend Emily P.G. Erickson, she's been a guest on this podcast before, and she wrote this post that just floored me. And it talked about how your job is not to shit on. I don't know if she used these words. Your job is not to beat yourself up for that bad writing before. Your job is to love the you that showed up and put those down the best they could. It's kind of like a little kid, like when we're raising our kids and our kids start talking, They are not fluent. They do not know how to express themselves. So they're playing, but those foundations they build, they give us everything that we're building on. So your job is just to love that former self who put those words down, because now they're here for you to shape them. And without that, you got nothing.
Absolutely. And my story in particular, I started writing just a loose thing of essays once I
Mm-hmm.
was diagnosed with Lyme disease. So
Mm-hmm.
it was my way of A, cataloging what was happening, and B, starting to try to process it. It was how I had
Mm-hmm.
stepped out of the actual pain and day-to-day activity and really embraced the idea of the watcher or the observer.
Mm-hmm.
It was how I switched from being the victim to the hero. Like, oh, how do I tell this story?
Mm-hmm.
It is a story. I can be a
Mm-hmm.
character. I can control how I'm narrating this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, it started just as a tool to help me get through a very painful process. And now
Did you know that at the time? Is that how you saw that in the time, or is this you looking back?
I have always wanted to write a book. Like, literally, I
Mhm.
was one of those kids that was like at 5 years old. I was like,
Oh, of course you did.
I'm gonna write
Yeah.
a book.
Yeah, I know you.
um, and I thought, well, this is sort of a fascinating thing that's happening. My entire life is falling apart. I'm unraveling from the inside. I need to I need to kind of catalog this. This is a story that is fascinating, if for no one else, for me.
Mhm.
And I realized that, oh gosh, there was so much in me that had to
Mhm.
come out, that I needed
Mhm.
somewhere to put it. And
Mhm.
I had been in sales for the past 20 years, so I talked to people all day long. I communicated all day long, and all of a sudden I was isolated in a bedroom by myself.
Yeah.
And there were these words that had to come out of me, and they had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
It was almost like an off-gassing, right?
Oh, yeah.
This energy has to come out of my body. I need to think that I am witty. I need to think that I have said something clever, and I will entertain myself, if nothing else.
Mhm.
So it was, yeah, it served so many purposes. And now to go back and see that girl, see it raw in real time. I mean, granted, some things were clever. I will totally give myself credit for that. Um, but other things were just, gosh, I there were things that I hit the nail on the head. I understood what was happening. There were other things where I was still seeing it through such a lens, such a cloudy lens, such a lens of history or trauma or past experience, that now, 8 years later, I'm, oh gosh, I have nothing but love for that girl. She suffered so valiantly and bravely, and I'm so
Yeah.
proud of her for cataloging her experiences and the vulnerability that is in my writing.
Yeah.
And, I'm grateful for the opportunity now that I have learned English better through
Mhm.
you, that I can tell her story with more pizzazz.
I wanna say too, thank you. Um, I love that you're sharing the secret of what it is to work with me. I'll teach you how to speak your own language,
Yeah, that's really it. It's yeah.
and I'll help you to understand the structure of it, like what's going on, but in a practical way. But I think too, when we start writing a story as powerful as yours, high executive woman who can fix the world, but you can't even crawl out of bed to go
Right.
get, right? Like you were kind of paralyzed from this experience. Like that's really traumatizing and painful and really disorienting. I think sometimes when we start writing, we have to keep a certain kind of a distance just so we don't re-traumatize ourselves and so that we can establish that this writing is a safe place to be, not just something that's going to, like you could hurt yourself writing the painful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, not funny to have this come up at this point in time, because I just yesterday, last night, rewrote the suicide chapter.
Oof.
And I did, spoiler alert, I did not kill myself, anyone.
Thank God.
Yes, thank you. But I was grappling with it at the depths of the disease, and really trying to get my head around what my value was, since I was no longer able to produce anything, and I was only taking time and money and resources away from my family. And it looked like that was how it was going to be forever. But when I had first written that,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it, I acknowledged it, but it was separate. It
Mm-hmm.
was as an observer. There was I and I remember you giving me the feedback that I didn't have very good verbiage around, I wasn't bringing you into the scene with me, because at
Mm-hmm.
the time it was just hard enough to acknowledge that it had happened and
Right.
that I had experienced it, and to say, okay, yes, this was part of the process. It was an important part of the process,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened. But it was written very much as an observer, very much from 10 feet away, because that's as close as I could get.
Absolutely.
And that was, gosh, I mean, the actual occurrence happened in 2016. It's 2024 right now. You and I were working on that. I wrote that. I sent it to you in, I don't know, 2019,
When was that? When
20,
was
something
that?
like, it was
Whenever
years
that
ago.
was.
Yes. And it took me until yesterday to be able to write it as a scene with the voice in my head, and what the voice was actually saying to me, and how
Right.
I responded to it, and the sweat that I felt, and how I rolled over onto my side as a way to hide from the voice. So it was years of going through it until I could re-embody it. And even afterwards, then I was exhausted, and it feels complete.
I love to hear you say that, because some people, and this is not a cop out, some people write fiction. They just write fiction, you know? If you're going to put it out there as memoir, then you have to give people something to hang on to. But it doesn't have to be for the reader until it is, because it doesn't matter when it happened. If you've never, ever opened up that little box and looked inside, there's going to be a lot there. It's going to be intense, and it's going to take you a moment or 20 to get through it and to start to really process. And it brings things up. You know this. I'm a writing coach. I'm not a therapist. And that's really important. That's an important distinction, because it gives you some safety too, right? Like, I'm not going in and prying into your mind, but you can take that. You can say, okay, there it is. It's on the paper when I return. And now I'm going to go walk in the woods. I'm going to go talk to my trusted people. I'm going to do my mental health work that I need to do. I'm not going to force myself through. And I think that's why even one of the things I feel so strongly about, I've always known that I had these books, but I'd have these people who looked at me like, what is wrong with you that you can't figure out what the topic is, and it felt really bad. You're like, what is wrong with you that you're falling apart? No, that's part of the process. And when you're writing memoir, especially, and unless somebody's written memoir, and I mean memoir, not like they talk about themselves around their edges, but they've really written memoir, you cannot understand that. No, it's going to be a beautiful thing. You've said this, and I feel the same way. I'm not sorry that I have these beautiful books to show for what I did, but it gets to be your story as long as you need to sit in that and move through what is there for you before you send it out into the world. Because otherwise, we're Judy Garland, and everybody else is experiencing our pain, but we're never healing.
Right. It was Glennon Doyle who said, "You teach from the scar, not the wound."
Right.
So it's
Do not.
important that you are healed, that you are complete with the topic before you share it with others. Otherwise, you're just re-injuring yourself constantly. And this
Mhm.
has been such a process. Yes, the book is a memoir. And when people ask me, what is it about? 49,000 words later, I say, I'm not sure. I'm still figuring that out because as I go through, you tell the story and then you go, there's more to this.
Mhm.
There's more to this. There's more to this. I
Mhm.
could, in theory, spend the rest of my life uncovering the layers of this book. Eventually, I'll go, yeah, that's good.
Right. At a certain point, it gets published, it moves out into the world, but even then it's evolving. So, like you say, what's your book about? I have a book that German Awakening, pretty easy. American goes to Germany, sees some comparisons and some contrast, right? But my other book, Tiny Altars, I started going to therapy. I had gone, but not for a long, long time. Started going to therapy about a couple months before I published it, and I'm still in therapy unpacking all the gifts of that book
Oh,
from the other side of it, you know?
yeah, I'm sure. And there were so many points through the writing of mine where, and I even say at one point, I was like, and this is where I called the therapist.
Mhm.
Because it's like, excuse me, time out. I need some
Uh-huh.
support here.
Uh-huh. I don't, and I'd like to say I think therapy's awesome. Like I don't, like it's not like there's something wrong with me. I'm like, yay, I get to go to therapy
Oh,
and
I
unpack
love
more stuff.
therapy.
Then I'll have more stuff to write about. Like I love therapy, but yeah, your writing is yours and it gets to be where it is. And it's been interesting, Kara, because you worked with me. I had a little offer. I had a package. You signed up for it. We completed the package.
Which was at the time, I think, one of the most expensive things I had purchased aside from my life coach training.
Right.
So
That's actually,
it was like a thing. Like I had to have a
yeah.
conversation with my husband and explain to him that I just felt this need, that I had to get this work out into the world and I couldn't do it
Mhm,
alone. I needed,
mhm.
and so it was a thing, but I'm infinitely glad that I did it. I can't imagine having not had.
I know that story too, right? Like, okay, this is going to cost a lot, but I've never been sorry. And to be clear, I don't sign up for everything. I'm very discerning. I know you are too. It's like, oop, nope, this thing is speaking to me. I'm going to do this. And I don't actually want people to work with me if they don't feel it because that's a lot. But but you did, and then you kind of were like, okay, it was like you were standing at the edge of the diving board, like, okay, okay. And I'm like, come on, Kara, we're gonna jump in, we're gonna do this. Okay, okay. And then you finally started, and we did that whole thing. And at the end of it was like you had written a lot, and it was like, okay, see where this goes. And you went out into the world with your writing.
Yeah, and I've started to publish little bits here and there, just more dribbles on social media kind of things, getting it started.
Mhm.
But the book itself is going to be released summer next year, which is,
Crazy, huh?
yeah, so crazy. I'm still getting my head around that. Still feel like there's a million different rewrites that I want to get done between now and then, but it's having an end in sight is it feels like it's marking the end of that whole period of my life. It's
Mhm.
the exclamation point. It's the final scab peel off of going,
So people talk about this, and I guess I have different opinions than those people. They basically say that if you go into your memories, you can change what happened. And it's like, I mean, yes and no. So you can remember things differently, right? But at the same time, what you're really doing is you're just reframing what happened when you're doing the writing. And so you still remember a lot of those salient details. You do a lot of the fact checking, you whatever, but you come out with an awareness that is maybe bigger than when you started that writing. And so I wanted to know at this point, you're narrowing down the focus, you're really tightening it, and you're moving towards an end date. What are some ways in which the writing itself has shaped your understanding like, what's a perspective that you just wouldn't have come to except through the writing?
Wow, that is a really good question. Uh, it has fully, fundamentally shaped my perspective and my understanding of the whole situation. I started it, I became sick. I had been sick for years and just powered through. I was exceedingly disembodied. The sickness came, knocked me on my feet, and I used it as an invitation to really dig into how I had gotten there. So it was is illness as an invitation to a deeper level of healing. I started as a victim, right? This thing had happened to me. I was miserable. And then I started down the standard route of memoir.
Mm-hmm.
It was my parents' fault. Clearly. Clearly, I had been traumatized, and damn it, they're at fault.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to take steps back and look at ancestral lineage and generational trauma and how the subconscious is formed and how concepts are passed generationally in the womb
Mm-hmm.
and how that creates inherent shame in the body. The shame causes inflammation in the body. The inflammation then there sets you up for disease. So this isn't something that necessarily happened to me. This isn't something that happened to me because of my parents. This is something I was predisposed to based on hundreds or thousands of years of lineage.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden I can look at all of my life, all of my ancestors and myself with this sense of compassion. And we were all sort of victims of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And as I take these steps then to heal myself, it feels bigger than just oh, I'm going to take some pills or do some meditation or do whatever to get myself healthy. I feel like I'm ending a lineage of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to be different in the world from what I understand and not go forward with this idea of I got sick and then I lost things and bad things happened. But like, holy shit, I had this opportunity to do this like big, big foundational work to recreate who I am and how I operate and to provide a different lineage for my children and their children.
You know, and I often think when we really do that kind of work on ourselves, because it's so tempting to go, oh, memoir, how self centered. Yeah, it's incredibly self centered. That is not a bad thing, right? By centering on yourself and really looking at what you can do to shift that within yourself, it echoes out to other people. You're actually changing the one thing you truly can change.
The only thing you can change.
Mm-hmm.
And I say in the book, it's a book about privilege, right? Most
Mm-hmm.
people, when they are diagnosed with a chronic illness, chronic illness is accounts for 44% of all bankruptcies.
Oof.
Once a family has a spouse diagnosed with a chronic illness, the divorce rate goes from 40% to 75%.
Ooh.
I was in a family, my spouse has been amazing through the whole process. We had the funds to go through this whole process without me working. It was a gift. It was a privilege to have 8 years to spend in the dark, going to therapy, doing deep research, studying everything wellness and life coaching and mental fitness coaching and Reiki mastering and yoga teaching. Like that was a gift.
Right.
And I feel like part of my responsibility for that gift is to help people skip that part of the curve, if at all possible, to
Mm-hmm.
come back and say, okay, guys, I did this. It was shit, but I got to do it. And here's
Mm-hmm.
what I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how I'm being different because of it.
And I love that reframe of privilege, because I think to not make the most of privilege is actually to squander gifts that were given.
Absolutely. And this, sounds corny as hell, but this was an absolute gift.
Mm-hmm. And so now you are paying it forward.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I really want to say this, I think the temptation is we want to be so meaningful and useful and valuable that our first thing is to just pass it on to somebody else and not let ourselves really, really do the work that you are doing of feeling what that story wants to be. I was walking with a friend, and she had listened to one of my podcasts where we talked about emotional scorekeeping. And she was citing a memoir that had been recommended to her where she was just like, oh my gosh, it's nothing but it's a privileged woman doing emotional scorekeeping. And nope, if you are a privileged woman and you are privileged enough, or man, to have enough time to do this, then do the introspection and do not cut corners, because it is a gift that you will pass on to people, but do not rush past yourself first. Don't.
Yeah, no. And but it takes so much effort and so much time. It's so much easier to just do the emotional scorekeeping. It's so much easier to relate the
Of course
event
it
to you,
is.
right? Like, it's so much easier for me to be like, oh my God, it was my mother. Like, this is ridiculous. And I have consciously centered the book around only me and of course my husband, because he was just there for everything.
Right.
And I eliminate the idea of so-and-so did something to me and everything is looked at like here I am. And I can see this from this broader spectrum of ancestry and generations, but here I am, like, independent. It's not, nothing is about what happened to me. Only what I'm doing from right here.
And I think, so I have been writing for going on 15 years. Like, obviously, I wrote things before that, like you. I always wanted to write books. And somehow when I started, around my 40th birthday, when I started getting these calls to write and invitations and just was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Somehow I think I thought I would like get through it and come out on the other side. And to hear you talking, I think you're in a similar place to I am, which is like, I'm never going to arrive. What I get to do is I get to do this work for the rest of my life, and I love it. And it's a privilege to do that. And I'm going to just keep going. And yeah, the other things laid the foundations, but there's more work to do. And it feels like I'm doing something really meaningful. How lucky am I?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And when you have that reframe, it all becomes a little easier because writing is hard.
Oh yeah.
Like, I tell my husband every day, he's a writer for in real life. And I go downstairs and I'm like, oh my God, this is hard. Like, I'm like, I was writing for 7 hours. I feel like I have nothing. I have one good paragraph. But when you go, it's a gift. Like, I get to do this.
Yeah. And it's so exciting to see you doing it.
Thank you. And I couldn't do it without you, and you know that. So I so appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Courageous Wordsmith. Today's episode featured Cara Pacific Campbell. You can read more about her and check out her links in the show notes. That's where you'll find my links too. Backstage at Courageous Wordsmith, our production team is the brilliant Brooke Roy and me, Amy Hallberg. You can subscribe to this podcast right on this page. Sign up for my emails and share with friends who want to write. And how about you? You have stories to tell. What if you let yourself tell them? What would that look like for you? I am Amy Hallberg, and until we meet again, travel safely.